our next part of everything here. AEW All In recap here. My first AEW pay-per-view watching fully, like not just catching bits and pieces of a match. I actually took the time to watch every minute of this show, and I can say it was a nice, solid show. I enjoyed it. Of course, we'll get into it. Of course, when we get to the Stampede match, some parts I was grossed out by, but but overall,
that was a good spot.
overall, I thought it was a pretty good show. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good show despite all that. But I thoroughly enjoyed AEW All In. Of course, they went to London, the UK, selling out, I think, just over 81,000 fans, which is impressive for AEW to go over to and do. To gain that type of market, to get that type of fan base. I thought the atmosphere was crazy. Of course, those UK fans are crazy. I thought the entrances were cool. I thought the walkway in was kind of cool with the video around them. Kind of reminds me of like old WWF stuff and like Super Bowl stuff with the weekend and stuff like that. So just the presentation I thought was top notch. I thought everything was pretty good. But what do you guys think about that? It's, of course, we're going to get into the CM Punk controversy with Jack Perry and Tony Khan and various reports of that. We can start there with the CM Punk controversy, actually, because all that stuff is kind of overshadowing the show and All In, which was a pretty good show. I thought it was a pretty good show. Everyone thought it was a pretty decent show. And for all these stories to just start trickling out again right before All Out, where the last controversy happened. So what do you guys think about CM Punk's recent events over the past 72 hours?
All right, Daniel, I need you to repeat something for me. How many fans sold out Wembley Stadium again?
81,000 plus.
81,000 plus. Your biggest show ever. 81,000 plus. Are we talking about the quality of the show? What how long has it been? 4 or 5 days, 3 or 4 days later? Are we talking about the quality of the show? Are we talking about how MJF and Adam Cole was a story masterpiece in the main event? Are we talking about the quality of Chris Jericho and Will Ospreay in their match? Are we even talking about how grotesque the Stadium Stampede match was?
We touched on it a little bit.
We maybe touched on it a little bit. We're not talking about that. We're talking about another backstage controversy evolving their biggest draw. Again, this is what we're talking about. Now, like you said, Daniel, there have been various reports as to exactly what happened. All we know for sure, based upon what I've read, all we know for sure is we know who was involved, and we know who's suspended now. And we kind of know for sure now what it was kind of about. So my interpretation of all this is pretty much that I guess Jack Perry wanted to film a glass spot on Collision. He signed off. Somebody in the office signed off on it. We don't know who. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that situation is. He comes to Collision ready to film it, and I guess apparently CM Punk was the one that put the kibosh on it, pretty much stating that the whole point of Collision is to be different from Dynamite, to be more wrestler focused, and he felt that going the glass spot went against Collision in a sense, being that it was a grotesque spot. Now, I don't know if CM Punk is the executive producer of Collision or what that situation is, but if he's just a worker, just a regular worker like everybody else,
let me use head booker.
Unless he's the head booker, producer, or whatever. Yes, he's the biggest draw on the show, but that essentially means you have more value than another guy. But you're pretty much you're an independent contractor wrestler, just like Jack Perry is. So you may have some pull, but to put the kibosh on something that apparently was signed off on, I can see from Jack Perry's standpoint why he ended up doing what he did on the pre-show with the match with Hook, doing the glass spot, then looking in the camera and saying it's real glass, Crimea River, which then allegedly when he came through the curtain, Punk came up to him and said do we have a problem? And then everything escalated from there. We don't know who started. We don't know who threw the first punch. Some people are saying Punk was the aggressor. Other people are saying it was Jack Perry that was the aggressor. We don't know. All we know is that there was an altercation, and Tony Khan suspended them, and now CM Punk is going to miss All Out in Chicago.
Is that confirmed? Like he's going to miss it?
No, that's confirmed. Like they suspended. Like, I haven't watched. I watched the first hour of Dynamite, and I watched the beginning of beginning when they showed the highlight. They didn't even show. I don't even think they showed CM Punk's match. So I think they went right into the first thing they showed was the 6-man tag right after. So he's suspended. So him and Jack Perry are suspended. That's official. Even Sports Illustrated reported on it. So
my whole thing about it is.
Daniel, before you continue, I just want to just throw this in there before you go, because I mentioned just previously in the Bray Wyatt tribute about how about pro wrestling, how it's a community, and how sometimes death bring everybody closer together. So you would think with that mindset, the fact that 2 days before we lost Bray Wyatt, and then the day before that we lost Terry Funk, you would think that like some petty bullshit like that could be put to the side for the better, as far as coming from Jack Perry's standpoint, for him to say what he said. So, but in this case, it doesn't, and now the greatness of the show has been overvalued by some petty bullshit that literally need to happen, don't want it to happen, and I'm actually so pissed about it because I'm tired of reading the fucking reports about what happened. Every day it's a new story. Every day it's a new person. Every day it's a new wrinkle, and I don't even care to tell it anymore because it's bullshit.
like see,
go ahead, Lewis. You can go ahead. Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm going further and further away from the CM Punk wagon. Mind you, when the rumblings of him coming back, I was so excited. I'm like, oh shit, he's coming back, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not saying he's, in this situation, he's the one who started it, blah, 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 but why is it that he's always a central part to every one of these situations? And I think that's where it kind of sways people's perception. And I think even swayed me a little bit. I'm like, this guy just has to have beef with everybody. And I'm like, the fact that we've gotten to a point where they literally made another show, and that's where the only place he can be. And now look, we're still getting more of this bullshit. It's just like you just had your WrestleMania, probably bigger than a WrestleMania, and this is the focus. Like you want to know literally every time taking away from the product.
If they were like WWE and committed to the brand split,
they're not committed to the brand split. See, LA Knights everywhere.
And Daniel, the comment on that, because you mentioned WWE. Now I know for a fact that issues like this probably do happen in WWE.
And you don't hear nothing about it.
Like for example, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins apparently had their little issues when they had their feud before Cody got hurt, and we didn't even hear about it until they both started talking about it in their own podcasts. So so it really makes you ask the question, like, for Tony Khan, like, when are you gonna actually step up as an owner to prevent shit like this from happening? I mean, you gotta be more of a leader. I mean, I know these guys are your friends, but this is your company.
I don't think Tony Khan has the power to prevent it from happening. Yes, this time around, obviously, he should learn from what happened with the first incident, and I think it's good that we didn't have to wait however freaking long, month or whatever after, to be like, oh, they're suspended. Oh, there's an investigation. No, like, they're both suspended. We'll have an investigation. We'll go from there. This whole investigation shit is just like, it should not drag on for as long as it did. Obviously, people were around this, saw it. The fact that the new internet articles.
I heard reports that he was in it. I heard he got in the middle of it.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
All these stamps.
And this is the thing, and I think something that I don't know if it was. I forget who mentioned it at the last incident with Punk and the Elite, or it's just like, the fact that all this info gets out is because people are letting out what they want to let out. They're like, oh, we got inside resources. No, it's because you're actually letting out this information. And if this all would have kept backstage crap, which obviously wasn't even that big of an incident,
apparently it wasn't that to that degree of what they're saying.
Not to the magnitude of the last
it was
one.
an altercation. Something happened, but it wasn't like it was like an MMA fight. It wasn't to that level.
It's just like, you're telling me guys who fucking fight for a living aren't gonna get into arguments at one point, and it's just like, why does this have to be the entire news media cycle and take away from what was just an amazing show? Yeah. So.
And I'm not, and I always say on the show, I'm not the biggest AEW supporter. That was a good show. That was a good show. Like.